Did you see any of that?
Yeah, I saw everything.
I mean, it's so heavy, Archie. Can you just explain to us how you're feeling about it all?
I'm still sad and devastated about what happened.
Hello, I'm Paul Barry. Welcome to Media Watch. And that emotional interview last week between today's Alison Langdon and 14-year-old Archie Fiver was raw and uncomfortable viewing. Just 2 days earlier, Archie had been with her cousin, 15-year-old Solomon Tofalanaki, when he was allegedly set upon by a group of boys in Melbourne's western suburbs and stabbed to death.
The shattered parents of a 15-year-old fatally stabbed in Deer Park say they forgive his killers. Solomon Tofalanaki was on his way home from school when police allege he was targeted by boys as young as 13.
The story captured front pages and viewers' hearts, not just because of the senseless attack, but also the remarkable generosity of his grieving parents to the killers and the media.
We don't want any justice. We want our son back home.
What do you feel then for those boys that did this to Solo?
We love them. We don't know them, but we love them.
Solomon, or Solo, was from a large family and a much larger community of Pacific Islanders in Melbourne's west. And on Wednesday, many gathered in the car park where Solo was stabbed to pay their respects, with friends like this boy speaking to the media with parental consent.
He was just like a brother to me. He had a great sense of humour.
Next morning, news crews set up in the car park again to give viewers the latest updates over breakfast. Only this time, Nine's Today Show had something its rival Sunrise did not: a live interview with Solomon's cousin.
Archie, thank you so much for joining us this morning. I mean, you're just 14. To have seen what you did 2 afternoons ago, how are you?
I'm good, thank you.
She was indeed remarkably poised as Langdon pushed her to recount the horrific event.
Can you describe to us what was happening before the fight broke out? As we said, you were with him that day.
I was walking with him near the library, and then we heard a group of boys running towards us. So then he told me, he was like, "Run, Archie, run, Archie."
Faced with the girl struggling with her emotions, Langdon tried to soothe, but she also kept the questions coming in a chat that lasted several minutes.
Are you okay, sweetheart? It's pretty tough, isn't it?
Yeah.
Do you have any idea what the fight was about?
After more questions on how she thought her cousin should be remembered and why the family was so forgiving, Langdon ended with this.
Do you have a message for those who were responsible?
After a long silence, the plug was finally pulled. It was hard to watch, and while Nine wisely kept it off its social media channels, viewers wrote to us appalled.
What in the hell did Channel 9 hope to achieve by interviewing this young girl?
The girl's extreme discomfort and trauma was evident from the start. This interview should never have taken place.
Journalists also debated the ethics. One rival told us Today has been pushing hard to close the ratings gap with Sunrise, and this time pushed too hard. While another senior news boss said,
"No, we wouldn't have done it. It's just too raw and 14 is too young."
So, what possessed Nine to do it? Network News boss Darren Wick tells us the interview was supposed to be with Archie and her aunt, but the aunt pulled out at the last minute.
Archie's mother and family members were on location with her during the interview, standing just off camera. We have subsequently addressed this as a group and accept it was not ideal to have a minor speaking about such a terrible event without the on-air support of an adult.
We're glad to hear it. Families often want to talk to the media after tragedies, and these are difficult calls for journalists to make. But putting a traumatised 14-year-old girl alone and live on television was the wrong decision, permission or not. But now to the Philippines and the plight of crusading journalist Maria Ressa. Last year we told you how she and her news website Rappler, which has 14 million unique visitors a month, were being pursued for exposing unlawful killings by the Duterte government. And we showed you this famous warning from the now president back in 2016.
Just because you are a journalist, you are not exempted from assassination if you are a son of a bitch.
Maria Ressa is still very much alive and kicking, but sad to say, things are not going well for her.
In a blow to media freedom in the country, a jury found her guilty of libel over a 2012 article that linked a businessman and High Court judge to murder and the trafficking of humans and drugs.
Maria Ressa is facing up to 6 years in jail and 7 more criminal charges on top of this one. But for the moment, she's out on bail and determined to appeal her conviction. And on Friday, I spoke to her in Manila about her fight for media freedom. I began by asking her if she thinks she can win and if she's afraid of what will happen if she doesn't.
It's a tough question that you ask, even though it's such a simple question, right? When faced with evidence that I shouldn't have hope, what do? I don't have any other choice but to follow the path that I'm on. And I feel the abuse of power firsthand. And every day the walls keep closing in. I said, if I have to go to jail, you bring me sheets, you bring me food, and please bring me a fan. It's like, what can you do? You just have to prepare yourself for a worst case scenario. That doesn't mean I'm not afraid, but it does mean I'm prepared.
How important is it that you do win?
Rule of law. How important? Well, number one, all these charges are fabricated. And, this particular case, this cyber libel, there are 2 huge leaps to even bring this case to court. And the government's own lawyers threw it out.
How many charges are there now against you?
I have 8 criminal charges, including the cyber libel. The first one there's been a verdict in it now. We will continue fighting it all the way to the Supreme Court if necessary. But, again, the implications for Filipinos are huge in order to just make me feel the government's power, in order to stifle press freedom.
Why are you being targeted, you in particular?
I think journalists are being targeted. We did 2 series that really earned the government's ire. The first is questioning exactly how many people have been killed in a very brutal drug war that began hours after President Duterte took office. So there's the brutal drug war. We're challenging impunity there. The series is called Impunity Series. And then the other one is propaganda war, right? How the government is using Facebook to manipulate public opinion. And finally, the third one was manufactured consensus. We looked at 26 fake accounts and how they influenced, manually counting this, up to 3 million other accounts, right? After that, I was attacked personally, pummeled, exponential attacks. And all I could do at that point was actually count how many attacks we were getting. I was getting an average of 90 hate messages per hour, not 19, but 90. It was unheard of. And it was new. It was a new weapon against journalists. And Rappler was attacked. We've weathered this. It's been 4 years. And, I really believe that Rappler, what we were forced to go through, proves to me that good values, the mission of journalism, is good for the business of journalism. The mission is more important today than ever.
How much public support do you think you have, and can that help you win this battle?
I don't know. I couldn't have chosen any other path when the government attacked us. I couldn't have negotiated behind the scenes to tone down coverage. I can't. By the time the government attacked me, I was already in my 50s. I knew who I was. I knew why we did what we did. We created Rappler from scratch. And so when the attacks came, we knew we were going to fight back, right? I actually took that propaganda war series and passed it through my board because I knew it would unleash attacks, because it exposed what the government was doing to manipulate its own people. But if we didn't do that, then our people would believe the lies even more than they already do, right? So I guess that's it. It's like the journey is the battle. I lost the verdict, but standing up against that, demanding someone put their signature on something that is blatantly unconstitutional.
If you go to jail, will Rappler keep on fighting?
Absolutely. And I think that's the difference. I'm not alone.
One last question. Is there anything that we in Australia or people around the world can do to help you?
Please help us hold the line. I mean, look, we couldn't have done this without the generosity of strangers. You know, when the legal cases first started, there were months when we would have to spend an average of $40,000 US dollars a month. That's 2 million pesos a month, right? That's one way you can help us directly by contributing. If you just Google Rappler crowdfunding, it'll come to you. But beyond that, know that journalists all around the world are under attack. And part of this is because of the tech platforms that have now become the world's largest distributor of news. So support your local journalists. Every news group is in trouble today. Our business model has crumbled. Advertising is dead. And this very same platforms that have siphoned the advertising money is the platform that is being used to attack the credibility of the journalists who are trying to hold the line. So understand what's happening, understand the sacrifices of the journalists who are trying to hold the line.
A brave woman. And if you want to contribute to her legal defence, just Google Maria Ressa crowdfunding. And finally, to that old riddle, how do you make a small fortune? And the answer, start with a big one. Back in 2012, Germany's Bauer Media paid $525 million for the old Packer magazine empire, which owned many of Australia's best-known magazines, including Women's Day, Clio and the Australian Women's Weekly. Then last month, Bauer spent another $40 million to pick up New Idea, Marie Claire and Better Homes and Gardens, and other titles from Kerry Stokes' Pacific magazines. And then last week, it sold the lot for less than $50 million. Thus crystallising a loss of around $500 million. Ouch. So, who got the bargain? Step forward, Australian private equity firm Mercury Capital, which likes to invest in companies with, quote, clear growth strategies and compelling growth opportunities, and which has no experience in traditional media. So, will they slash and burn and sell bits off to make a profit? Bauer Australia's CEO Brendan Hill told Mumbrella they will not.
They told me they're going to spend the next 2 to 3 months with the senior team and get to know the business really well. And then we'll come back out with a strategy for the future and a long-term future growth plan for the business.
Bauer's 8 years of ownership, which ended with it having a near monopoly of the shrinking magazine market, saw it close a stack of popular titles like Clio, Dolly, Cosmopolitan, The Picture and People, Top Gear and more. And in the weeks before selling up, it sacked around 120 staff and stood down 100 more without pay. But some now hope the change of ownership will signal better days ahead. One senior staffer told MediaWatch,
"There's some optimism at last. Nothing could be worse than Bauer. Everyone was worried they would shut down more titles. No one trusted them. Now we have someone who sees value in the company and value in the staff. We're hoping this will be a fresh start."
So we tried to ask Mercury Capital if all the titles will survive and if jobs are now safe. But amazingly, we were told they don't have a media team. So we asked Bauer, who told us they plan to keep on printing all their titles, well, for the moment, and bring back titles they've temporarily suspended if and when it's feasible. Meanwhile, CEO Brendan Hill told Mumbrella he'll still be running the business and it's booming.
Yes, I'll be sticking around and the executive team will be sticking around. So, we've got a great team here and the business is doing really well, to be fair, albeit with the impact of COVID. But since we got Pacific, we're really poised for growth and the team's really stable.
Not surprisingly, that upbeat message was greeted with some disbelief by Mumbrella readers, with comments like this.
Spin, spin, spin. Bauer destroyed the Australian magazine industry and obliterated the only way forward, Pacific's successful digital strategy.
I'm tipping Bauer was super keen to cut their losses and ditch Australia. Contrary to the interviewee's claims, I suspect competition for the assets was close to zero.
With a near market monopoly and a claimed 6.5 million readers of the mags, plus 9 million digital users, the business ought to have a decent future. And we're told that ad revenue is bouncing back and subscriptions are on the rise. But former Marie Claire editor Jackie Frank reckons the new owners have got plenty of work to do, telling MediaWatch,
Mercury need to instil confidence back into the market, both from a consumer and advertising perspective. They need to reveal their strategy, explain their why, and go out fast and hard, displaying a strong direction and confident leadership.
And a former manager at Pacific Magazines offered a similar piece of advice.
They'll need to invest in a new executive team. If they don't, it will just be business as usual. Bauer left a lot of ill will among clients and staff, and it's going to take a long time to win that trust back.
It's also going to take time to win back readers' trust, and sadly there's no sign of any obvious plan to do so. Last week's New Idea, for example, had this warning to Meghan on the cover.
Stay away from Brad.
That was accompanied by a picture of Brad hugging a mystery brunette, whom New Idea clearly wanted us to think is Meghan. But we reckon it's this fan hugging Brad back in 2011. Same ponytail, same goatee, same hat, same glasses. Yup, it's another shameless con. We asked Bauer if Mercury Capital's editors would have a greater respect for facts and honesty, and they replied,
"We're unable to comment on behalf of Mercury Capital."
But here's a suggestion to Mercury Capital. As you ponder what to do with your bargain buy, why not make a resolution to stop cheating your readers? It might even make the future of your magazines more secure. That's all from us tonight. There's more on our website, including a full statement from Bauer Media and 9 News. And don't forget Media Bites every Thursday on your favourite social media platform. But for now, until next week, goodbye.